Why would you call me beautiful? I am a monster human, she whispered. The man only S. Beginning. The corridors of the abandoned research station groaned under their own weight, echoing every footstep like a whisper from the dead. Captain Elias Vane had seen his share of ruins across the galaxy, but there was something different about this one. The outpost hidden on the edge of the black desert moon Kales, for hadn't just been abandoned. It had been erased from every chart, every archive, every government record. No official map acknowledged its existence, and yet here it was, looming in the shadow of the barren rock, like a secret too heavy to bury. Elias's oxygen regulator clicked faintly as he moved deeper inside. He was no soldier, not anymore. Once, yes, he had fought in the border wars between the Orion Syndicate and the Commonwealth fleets. But years of bloodshed had worn his soul thin, and now he worked as a scavenger, pulling forgotten tech from the bones of derelicts. Most times, the biggest danger was faulty airlocks or collapsing beams. Today, though, his instincts hummed with unease. His helmet light swept across rusted doors and shattered consoles, glinting over something else, scratches etched deep into the walls. They weren't random gouges of age or metal fatigue. They were claw marks. The deeper Elias went, the more oppressive the silence became. He passed rows of shattered containment tanks, their glass fractured outward as if something had broken free. The reports he'd bought on the black market had hinted that this facility was once a gene engineering lab, abandoned after catastrophic containment failure. Most scavengers would have fled right then, but Elias wasn't most scavengers. He carried the kind of emptiness that didn't fear shadows. In fact, he welcomed them. It wasn't until he reached the heart of the station that he found her. The figure lay curled inside the ruins of a containment cell, surrounded by shattered glass and dried chemical residue. She wasn't fully human. At first glance, she looked like a young woman, perhaps in her early 20s. Her silver-white hair spilled across the floor, glistening faintly in the beam of his light. But her skin shimmered with scales that rippled between pale ivory and translucent crystal. Her limbs were longer than human proportions, fingers tipped with claws more delicate than blades. And her eyes, closed at first, snapped open at his presence, revealing twin pools of molten gold slit with a reptilian iris. Elias froze. He had faced soldiers, mercenaries, and machines, but nothing like this. The creature, no, the girl, shifted upright, her breath ragged. Her voice came out soft, rasping, like she hadn't spoken in years. Why are you here? Elias kept his plasma sidearm low, but ready, looking for salvage. Didn't know this place still had residents. She blinked slowly, confusion and exhaustion flickering in her gaze. Then, trembling, she whispered words that made his heart jolt. Why would you call me beautiful? I am a monster human. Elias hadn't even realized he'd spoken aloud, but he had. The word had slipped past his guard when he saw her, as natural as breathing. Beautiful. The girl shuddered, curling her scaled arms around herself. You should run. If you stay, you'll die. But Elias only stood there, silent, caught between fear and something deeper. Over the next few days, Elias discovered she wasn't simply a failed experiment or a beast gone wrong. She was the last survivor of a program codenamed Seraphim. The scientists here had tried to splice human DNA with that of ancient alien drakes unearthed from the desert moons. Their goal, to create hybrids that could withstand radiation, extreme climates, and even combat conditions. Most of the subjects hadn't survived the process. Those who had mutated beyond reason, except for her. Her name, she told him haltingly, was Lyra. She didn't remember much of her early life, only that she had once been a child, someone's daughter, before being brought here. The rest was pain, needles, endless tests, and the stench of burning flesh as others like her discarded when their bodies failed. Elias should have left. Every instinct told him so. But each time he tried to turn away, he found himself returning with supplies. Water filters, ration packs, med gel for the wounds that still marred her scaled skin. At first, Lyra flinched at every movement, expecting cruelty. Yet slowly, like a desert flower daring to bloom, she began to trust him. Her voice grew stronger. Her laughter, low, uncertain, but real, echoed in the darkened corridors. She even teased him when he fumbled with ancient consoles, calling him clumsy human. Still, the shadow of her words lingered. I am a monster. He saw what she meant each time she lost control. When hunger gnawed at her, her claws dug gouges into the metal floor. When nightmare struck, her body convulsed. Scales rippling, fangs bare in a silent scream. More than once, Elias had to restrain her from hurting herself. But never, not once, did she turn her fury on him. The bond between them grew in the quiet gloom of the station. Elias told her about the wars, about the way men were broken and discarded by governments just as cruel as the scientists who had abandoned her. She told him about her fear of herself, of the power burning in her blood, of the possibility that one day she would lose what little humanity remained. And always, she asked the same question in different ways. Why do you stay? Why do you not run? The truth was simple. Elias had seen monsters before, real ones, men who laughed while cities burned, commanders who sent children into minefields, corporations who left planets poisoned for profit. Compared to them, Lyra was no monster. She was just alone, and Elias knew too well what it meant to be left behind. But the universe has a cruel way of shattering fragile peace. One evening, while they scavenged for power cells, the silence of the desert sky was split by the descent of black ships. The syndicate had found the station. They came in search of the same thing Elias had stumbled across, rumors of surviving seraphim. But unlike him, they didn't see beauty or pain. They saw a weapon. Lyra's fear was immediate, primal. They'll take me, use me, or kill me. Elias tightened his grip on his rifle. Not while I'm breathing. Climax. The syndicate soldiers moved through the ruins like a tide of steel and fire, their scanners sweeping the corridors. Elias knew they had no chance against such numbers. But he also knew that surrender was an option. Listen to me, he told Lyra, pulling her close. You are not their weapon. You are not their monster. You are you, and I'll fight until my last breath to keep it that way. Her molten gold eyes trembled with something unfamiliar. Hope. The battle was chaos. Elias used every scrap of guerrilla training he had left, turning the ruins into a trap, explosives hidden in corridors, collapsing beams, ambushes from shadows. But for every soldier he dropped, 3 more came. It wasn't enough. Lyra tried to fight it aside, but the closer the enemy pressed, the more her fear threatened to consume her. He could see it in the way her scales flared, in the tremor of her claws. Her nightmares were becoming real. She was losing control. At last, surrounded, Elias stood before her like a shield, rifle out of ammo, blood streaking his cheek. He spread his arms, defiant. You'll have to go through me. The commander sneered. Gladly. The shot fired, but it never struck, because Lyra moved. With a scream that tore the air, her body unfurled into its full power. Scales shimmered with blazing light, claws extending like blades. Wings of crystalline membrane burst from her back, scattering shards of bioluminescence across the ruin. The soldiers faltered, horror on their faces. What they saw was no failed experiment. What they saw was a dragon reborn. Lyra struck like a storm. Fire laced with plasma ripped from her throat, cutting through steel. Her claws shredded armor. Her wings swept soldiers like leaves in a hurricane. When the smoke cleared, only silence remained. Elias stood among the wreckage, staring at her as she panted, trembling, blood and fire dripping from her form. Her eyes, wide with fear, locked onto his. Do you see now? She whispered, voice cracking. I told you, I am a monster. And it was then, despite the destruction, despite the terror, that Elias stepped forward. He reached out, touched her scaled cheek with blood-stained fingers, and whispered the only truth that mattered. No, you are beautiful. Her breath hitched, golden eyes filling with something fragile, something human. Tears. For the first time, she believed him. Ending. In the days that followed, Elias and Lyra fled the ruins together. The syndicate would return and others would hunt her, but they no longer walked alone. Elias found his purpose again, not in scavenging, not in war, but in protecting the one life that proved even in the darkest experiments, beauty could survive. Lyra, once certain she was nothing but a monster, began to discover herself beyond the pain. With Elias, she laughed more, dreamed more, and for the first time dared imagine a life not defined by cages. They traveled across forgotten moons, hiding in the cracks of empires, hunted but unbroken. And though danger loomed always near, each time the fear rose, Elias's words anchored her. You are not a monster. And each time she whispered back, trembling but stronger than before, then maybe I am beautiful. And Elias would only smile silent, because she already knew his answer.